I'm sitting in Hungary giving a speech to 500 marketers in Hungary. And my kids had been with me for 3 days. And at the end, the last session of the last day, I was supposed to speak about family. And the event director came over and said, hey, would you mind if we just brought your kids up and talked to them instead of you talking about family? I had no time to prep them. I had no time to tell them what to say. Literally, they're being brought up on stage. My girls are giving me the cutthroat sign of, I'm not talking. Do not ask me any questions. And they set them on stage and they asked them one question. What was it like to be the child of an entrepreneur like your father? And what happened next, which I share the whole story in the book, but every single person in that audience was in full-on tears within minutes because my kids talked about how much they resented me as an entrepreneur and how much they hated my businesses 6 years earlier, but how today they wouldn't want me doing anything but what I'm doing. And they're so thankful that I'm an entrepreneur. And every eye was crying because they were all entrepreneurs. And that's what they want their kids to say about them.
It's time for another episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show, a podcast where I connect you with thought leaders from across the globe, digging into some of my favorite topics like personal development, marketing, spirituality, and pretty much any other shiny object that happens to catch my attention. Today, my special guest is Timm, and we're going to be discussing his new book, Mentor to Millions, Secrets of Success in Business, Relationships, and Beyond. Mark, it is truly an honor, sir. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Shaun, for having me. Excited to be here and excited to talk about all those shiny objects if you'd like to, because we touch on about all of them in our book, Mentor to Millions.
Well, especially for us guys, shiny objects, we certainly like to follow them. But before we get into the book, Mark, I'd love to have you share what we might call a bit of the Mark Timm origin story. I know you're going to be brand new to so many of the people listening to us today. So for those of us who are just meeting you right now, what do we need to know about you?
Well, here's what you need to know. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had many businesses. Some have been a success and some have been a failure. It's been a real journey for me. But one of the things that really defines who I am, and I'm sure it'll be topics that we touch on here, is that I figured out just in time with my family that the most valuable business that I will ever own, ever operate, ever even be a part of, was the business I was coming home to, not the business I was going to, and that's my family. And the day that I became CEO of my family and I brought home my best and my first instead of my last and my least, that's when my world started to change and it made all the difference. And that's why I can actually be talking to you today.
Well, Mark, it's like you read my mind. That's exactly where I'm going to go in my next question. But I want to unpack that a little bit more. So I'm still going to keep moving in that direction. I loved how you opened the book in the prologue. You take us into a bit of your backstory. Two things that stuck out to me there. First, you said my businesses were getting my first and my best while my family got my last and my least. And then a little bit further down the page, you say, in my driveway at that moment, I decided that I would treat my family as a business instead of an obligation or a commitment. Would love to have you just unpack a bit more for us. Like what was going on in your head? Clearly you drew a line in the sand. You're like, I'm going to make a commitment, step over that line and not look back. So, for you, like, were there some indicators leading up to that let you know things weren't happy, with your wife and your kids, and just you were looking for something different at home? Was it an unrest inside yourself? I'm curious, what were some of the things that led up to and were feeding into you as you kind of made that choice?
I mean, I think we all know that we were put on this earth to do something special. We just don't know what that is, right? And what I knew is I was having some success in business, but I knew intuitively and instinctively that wasn't it. And when I say that wasn't it, I mean, it wasn't the reason I was put on this earth. I wasn't put on this earth just to be an entrepreneur, just to be a successful entrepreneur. I was put on this earth to do something extraordinary. And that moment on that day, in fact, our book is published by Hay House, and our editor, when they read the first line of the book, when I turned it in, she said, that's the most compelling first line that I've read in 10 years. And I'll give it away to everybody right now. The book starts with me saying, I turned into my driveway, I stopped my car because I knew I didn't want to go home. Now, the reasons for people not to want to go home as an entrepreneur are you lost your business, you filed bankruptcy, you had a horrible day. but it wasn't the case in my world. I had had one of the best days ever. I had crushed it in business. I had, made almost every decision with confidence and clarity. I had one of the biggest sales of my entire life. So why didn't I want to go home? Because I was leaving a world of confidence and clarity, and I was entering a world of chaos and confusion. And that was the struggle that I had. I knew that wasn't the way it was supposed to be. I knew that I wasn't supposed to be in these two worlds that were so polar opposite of each other. That was my driveway moment. Yes, I had a lot of indications leading up to that, but most of it was gut feelings. Most of it was just instinctive. But that day, everything changed. That moment, I call it my driveway moment, is when everything changed. I literally floored it, went up to my home, grabbed my wife and said, "You've got to trust me. I want to change everything." Now, that's a reason why a wife could say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, man, hold up, put her in reverse." But my wife saw the passion and she saw the commitment and she said, "I'm in." And the very next day, Shaun, I incorporated my family. I legally incorporated my family. You can look it up on the Indiana Register. Tim's LLC is a real corporation. And it was that day that I started running my family as a business. I became the CEO of it. And what happened is that I started taking everything that I'd ever learned in business and bringing it home. I started leading my family like I was leading my business. We started having shareholder meetings. We developed a family logo, a mission statement. Every conference I went to, I took notes and pages of notes to bring back to my family so that I could make my family the most valuable business in the world. And I'm here to tell you that I am now CEO of the most valuable business in the world. It's the Timm family. And the results that we have gotten as because of that decision in that driveway far exceed anything that I would ever have imagined for our family. And what I'm talking about is the bottom line that matters. And that's the relationship that I have with my children, the relationship I have with my wife, and the view and vision that my family now has for their future. And the coolest part of all is sometimes as entrepreneurs, we think, if I only lived somewhere else, if I only had a different business, if I only this, if I only that. I'm here to tell you, I'm still driving the same vehicle that was sitting at the end of that driveway. I'm still married to the same wife, and I still have the same children. The only thing that changed was me. What changed was in between my ears and the perspective I had, and I started bringing home the first and the best instead of the last and the least. And over time and consistency, my children and my wife bought into this vision, and they got on this journey with me. And now the Timm family has a legacy that's going to live on forever.
Mark, I couldn't help but smile at one of the out of the box kind of actions that you took with your family, which was to have them take the DISC personality profile. I'd love to just have you tell us, what does your family think about that, especially your kids? But also, how is that helpful? I mean, I've seen that used in the workplace. It's been helpful to me with the teams I've managed. But how is that helpful for you in working with your family?
Yeah. So as I said, I didn't reinvent the wheel. I'm here to tell you, if you're successful in some area of your life, you can be that successful at home. So I was looking at what I was doing in business, and we were using the DISC personality profile as part of our hiring process, as part of our team building process. And I'm like, wait a minute, I have these tools. I'll bring them home. So I had my children take the DISC personality profile. And you know what it did? It gave them this amazing permission to be different. They used to fight because they were different because they didn't know they had permission to be different. They, as children, thought everybody should be like them, when in reality, we're all different. I not only made them take the personality profile, but I then made them give a presentation to the family on their personality type and why their personality type was so special. And so every single person, from my wife down to my youngest kid, got to get up and tell us what their personality type was and why they are extraordinary because of that. And when it was all said and done, every single person had a newfound respect for each other, and they had more patience for each other, and they had more understanding of each other. But the biggest thing of all was just that ultimate permission to be different. Oh, that's why Mary does that. Oh, that's why Marcus does that. I'm not going to get mad at them or frustrated anymore. That's just how they're wired. And it got rid of so many arguments, because when an argument would happen, we would just go back to the disc and say, remember, this is how your brother thinks and this is how you think. So you're always going to see different views of that. And they'd be like, oh yeah, he's a D and I'm an I. So we're going to see things differently. And it diffused the situation, and it made it so much easier to coach and mentor our family around a concept that was safe, and it was exterior. We brought it in instead of just using our own family as a microcosm of what works and what doesn't. We use something that's been proven millions of times over, and again, applied it to business.
Just one more comment on doing the disc personality profile with your kids, especially. I think of how through the years I've shifted and changed as I've grown in terms of my results of personality profiles. How fun for people to get to see how they showed up on the profile early on in life, and then maybe see how they shift and change as they grow through the years. That's really, really fascinating to me. Thanks for sharing that. Mark, I think a lot of people listening to us right now, they would be excited to have had one of the amazing mentors in their life that you talk about in the book. You're indeed a blessed man to have had the privilege of being mentored by the likes of Zig Ziglar and Kevin Harrington. You encountered each of these men in different seasons of your life. So I'd like to have you maybe share a few of the important lessons that each of them imparted to you. I would imagine they spoke different things because you encountered them in different seasons.
Yeah, in fact, the book is called Mentor to Millions, and someone might think that's millions of dollars. It's not. The millions is referring to impact. Because if you're out there listening to this and you believe that you have been put on this earth, or you've got a purpose, passion, or product that could impact millions, the fastest way to do that is mentorship. And I'm a living example of that, because I talk a lot about my co-author and mentor, Kevin Harrington. But what you don't realize is, or you have if you read the book, but we met through a mutual mentor. So yes, I had Zig Ziglar as a mentor as a young man, but so did Kevin. And after Zig passed, we reached back out to the family, both independent of each other, about how we could extend the legacy, because we both wanted our children to know the teachings of Zig Ziglar, and we wanted his message to be around forever. And they were working with each of us independently, and then they introduced us to each other and said, why don't you guys work together on this? And we developed a know, like, and trust, and he became my mentor. But Zig Ziglar taught me so many powerful things about mindset. He actually taught me how that driveway moment became such a revolutionary pivot in my life, was because Zig used to say, you can change who you are and where you are by changing one thing, and that's what you put into your mind. What you're thinking about, what you're consuming, can change everything about what you're doing and where you're at in life. And of course, his famous quote that I've tried to live my life by is, you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. And so you literally can achieve everything you've been set on this earth to achieve by simply helping others. And it's so liberating when you think, I got to get up today. I don't have to make 5 sales today to feed my family. I get to get up and help 5 people, because I sell something people need and want and will change their life. But when you flip that paradigm, instead of saying, I have to make 5 sales, to I get to help 5 people, then no, by the way, by helping 5 people, it's feeding my family. It's just such a reverse, and it makes it so different. So Zig helped me a lot with mindset, and he helped me really get on the trajectory I was on in life. What Kevin helped me with is scale. I wanted to scale because I'd grown businesses. Now, growing a business means you start it, you grow it. It usually plateaus and doesn't go any higher, or sometimes it even starts going down on the other side. I'd experienced that over and over. I wanted to scale a business. I wanted to start a business and then scale it. Kevin had taken 20 businesses to 100 million. So I knew he could help me scale. Now, what I didn't realize is that not only would he teach me to scale, and oh, by the way, just for the record, I am well on my way to my first $100 million business as a result of the mentorship of Kevin Harrington. Prior to that, I'd never gotten a business over 10 million. So that's the power of mentorship and what it can do for you. But Kevin taught me how to scale. But remember, in this time frame, every chapter, what makes this book, Mentor to Millions, different is, yes, you can learn a lot about business. There's a lot of lessons about business. But at the end of every chapter, I try to take those lessons and show you how you can apply them at home. Because the most valuable business that I've scaled is my family. And scaling that is amazing. And so you can apply every lesson we teach, every lesson I've learned from these mentors, you can apply them back home. Even if you don't have a business, I teach you how you can use them on your most valuable business.
I know inevitably there's somebody listening to us right now who's like, yeah, that's all fine and good, but you got to work with Zig, you got to work with Kevin. How am I supposed to find a mentor? So for the average man and woman who's just off the street right now, so to speak, looking for a mentor, how do they find somebody to pour into them?
Yeah, that is an amazing question. And I'm going to give you the 3-step process, the 3-step formula that you can replicate exactly what I've done. Number one, you have to have the courage and the confidence to raise your hand and say, I need a mentor. There's so many people that say they need a mentor, but they're not courageous enough to raise their hand and put themselves out there. There's a good chance. I actually believe you already know everybody you need to know to accomplish everything you need to accomplish in life. So if that's the case, raise your hand to the people you know, your inner circle. If one of them can mentor you, awesome. If they can't, they'll know somebody who can, or they'll know somebody who knows somebody that's going to mentor you. And that's how it often works. But it takes by that first courageous step to raise your hand and say, I'm ready to be mentored and I need a mentor. And believe it or not, that sounds simple. It's not simple. And a lot of people don't do it. So once you've done that, step number 2 is you must become that mentor's best student. So many people enter a mentorship relationship and they don't implement. They don't do what the mentor tells them to do. Kevin Harrington is one of the busiest people I've ever met in my life. If you look, it makes me dizzy just to look at the man's schedule. It's so intimidating. But I recognize that early on. So I make it easy for him. I respect how busy he is. And so I make it easy for him to mentor me. And then guess what? I become his best student. And you know what happened next? He wanted to mentor me more. He found more time for me because he saw me implementing and he was attracted to that, like every mentor is. Once they see you actually implementing it, once they see you getting results, they want to spend more time with you. They'll find time with you. Any good mentor is probably busy, but if you want to get something done, give it to someone who's busy because they know how to find time when they need to. So step 1 is confidence, courage, raise your hand. I need a mentor. Step 2 is be that mentor's best student. Step 3 is you have to then become a mentor yourself. You see, your mentor gives you the bricks, Shaun. They give you the bricks, and bricks are powerful. I mean, some of the strongest foundations are made out of brick and block, and that's what you get from mentors. But if you just stack those up and make a wall, even a small guy like me can bust through it because it doesn't have any mortar. It doesn't have any concrete holding it together. That's what makes a brick wall so powerful. So when you turn around and you learn something and then you live it, then you must teach it. And when you teach it and you become a mentor yourself, that's the concrete, that's the mortar, that's what holds all those lessons together. And that's what builds a foundation that allows you to impact millions of people. So got to get a mentor, be their best student, and then become a mentor. And that's the trifecta that will put you on the pace of impacting millions of people.
Now, does a mentor always have to be somebody who is older than we are, or can it sometimes be somebody who has simply more experience in an area that we want to grow in?
Man, I hope they don't have to be older than we are because I've hit the midpoint of the century here. I'm going to out myself with my age. And so I now have mentors that are younger than me. I mean, a mentor does not have to be older. Yes, when I was younger, I had older mentors, but now like I've got a mentor that's 15 years younger than me. He just happens to be amazing in an area that I want to develop in my life. And so they don't have to be older. They can be younger. The question is, do they offer some value and wisdom that will help you on your journey in your personal life or your professional life? And in fact, by the way, you don't have to have just one mentor. I would not advise having many mentors. I would advise only having a couple at a time. But you can also outgrow your mentor. There's nothing more validating than you outgrowing your mentor. Mentors like to see that because then you're ready to go mentor others. And it means that their legacy is now rippling through the world. So you think, oh, I've outgrown my mentor, I got to stay with them and be stuck. No, you got to tell them, you've taken me this far on this journey. I'm ready to start teaching other people, and I'm freeing up bandwidth for you to mentor someone else. So they not only don't have to be younger, but you also don't have to have just one. I have a mentor in my personal life, and I have a mentor in my professional life. And so they don't have to be just one. They can be younger or older, and you can move past them when you've learned what it is they have to offer. So hopefully that's kind of eye-opening in all those areas, not just in age.
And Mark, in terms of running your family, leading your family like a business, so to speak, I'm curious from your experience, when you brought that level of leadership home, and so you're doing that both at home and in the workplace, I'm curious, how did that free you up? Was there kind of a synergy or a balance that emerged after you started to step into that process?
Well, I'm going to be totally candid with everybody here. My family didn't take it as well as I had hoped in the beginning. Like, my kids were like, oh, gee whiz, here's the latest flavor of the week. You know, what's dad talking about? I had kids that had never done homework in my presence before, that all of a sudden had homework coming out their ears every time I called a family meeting. So it wasn't always received as well as you would think, but consistency is what was needed. And then they got to see results that were coming out of their life and our family's life. And so it did free me up, because it gave me, here's something that came out of the whole experience. I was trying to develop this deeper relationship with my kids, but I was so busy. I was always traveling. I was missing stuff, and they were resenting me being an entrepreneur. So I'm like, wait a minute, I became an entrepreneur to be a better dad. Well, what's going on here? And so I made a commitment that over a 3-year period, I would never travel on another business trip without one of my kids with me. And for 3 years, over 100 trips, every single time I had one of my kids with me. That's where I built deep oil wells that are going to produce for the rest of our lives together. That's where I built relationships that so far beyond anything I could have ever imagined. It happened in planes. It happened in hotel rooms. It happened in masterminds. It happened in Ubers. That's when it happened, because they were in proximity and they developed an appreciation. So would I say it freed up my time? Heck yeah, because I was being dad at the same time I was being entrepreneur. I got to bring these things together. My kids wanted to work for me when they got older because they respected what I did and they bought into the businesses. And so it brought the two worlds together instead of orbiting separate. And that was the coolest part. My kids went from resenting me as an entrepreneur, if you want to go to the beginning of the book, when I'm sitting in that driveway, to, I might as well give you the end of the book too, is I'm sitting in Hungary giving a speech to 500 marketers in Hungary. And my kids had been with me for 3 days. And at the end, the last session of the last day, I was supposed to speak about family. And the event director came over and said, hey, would you mind if we just brought your kids up and talked to them instead of you talking about family? I had no time to prep them. I had no time to tell them what to say. Literally, they're being brought up on stage. My girls are giving me the cutthroat sign of, I'm not talking, do not ask me any questions. And they set them on stage and they asked them one question. What was it like to be the child of an entrepreneur like your father? And what happened next, which I share the whole story in the book, but every single person in that audience was in full-on tears within minutes, because my kids talked about how much they resented me as an entrepreneur and how much they hated my businesses 6 years earlier, but how today they wouldn't want me doing anything but what I'm doing. And they're so thankful that I'm an entrepreneur. And every eye was crying because they were all entrepreneurs, and that's what they want their kids to say about them. And that didn't happen overnight. That happened over years of me committing to bringing home the best and the first, me committing to being the entrepreneur, the father, me committing to being the CEO of the most valuable business, me taking everything I learned from Kevin, and instead of just applying it to my physical businesses, applying it at home as well. And I think that's what we all want as entrepreneurs, is to be able to win at home like we win in our businesses. And we want our kids to look at us in that way. It happened over time, but it was worth it.
Mark, if you had to sum it up, for the person who goes out and picks up a copy of Mentor to Millions, how are they going to be impacted? How are they going to be changed on the other side of the journey when they close that back flap of the book?
Yeah, it's not a how-to book. I just want to say it right up there. There's thousands of how-to business books. This is not a how-to book. This is the story. This is a journey of an entrepreneur who recognized that he was not supposed to do it alone, who found himself on a desert island and said, I was not put on this earth to be alone. I need mentors, and started reaching out to those mentors and then bringing that learning home to his most valuable business. So my hope is that anyone who reads this book not only learns a lot about business and scale and teams and all of that, but they see how they can apply all that they're learning in business, that they literally get permission to be the entrepreneur that they think they should be, so that they can then bring all of this good learning, these good lessons home to their most valuable business, which is their family. And my hope, and I believe most people, there's hundreds of people that have read advanced copies of the book, and so we have the feedback from them. And literally when they finish the book, they just sit there. And so many people have said this very thing. I finished the book and I had to sit there because I was having my own driveway moment. And that's what we want for the book. We want you to finish this book and have your own driveway moment and get some clarity around why you were put on this earth, the kind of husband you were supposed to be, wife you were supposed to be, the kind of father that you were supposed to be, the kind of coworker you're supposed to be, the kind of friend you're supposed to be, and then give you the permission and the power to go out and do it.
Mark, I've interviewed hundreds of authors, and I know that each book writing journey shapes an author, changes an author. I'm curious to hear, for you, how are you different on this side of writing Mentor to Millions, or any particular insights you learned along the way having to rethink and process this material for the book?
Yeah, I wish we found, my grandmother passed away, and we found these journals that she had written, and they're just like some of them are like 5 pages, and then that's it, and then some of them are 50 pages. But we've pulled them all together, and we're just like the hair standing on end, because so much of our history is being pulled together through these writings. And so what Mentor to Millions did for me is it forced me to sit down and be vulnerable about my failures and about some of my successes and my journey. And so I'm so thankful to have gone through that process, because it's allowed me to look back and understand why I'm on the trajectory I'm on now. And I got to tell you, the only reason I'm able to have this conversation with you and give advice to anybody is because I got it wrong for longer than I've gotten it right. It's not like I woke up one day and I got this whole family thing and parenting thing and business thing right. I got it wrong for a long time, but I know what it feels like to get it right. And I now want everybody else to get it right as well. And the coolest part of all is my kids are reading the book, and I'm leaving them a blueprint for their future families as well. And so I think that's the way I've been changed the most, is just recording this journey that I've been on, and memorializing it in a way that my own kids and grandkids can follow, and they don't have to make all the mistakes that I made. They can well get on their way to being their own impact of millions. And hopefully they will choose me to mentor them, because that's what really matters in life, is to be the mentor to those that matter most in your life.
And Mark, where can listeners go online to connect with you and find out more?
Yeah, so if you want to know more about the family stuff I've been talking about, obviously I've got my own blog and website at marktimm.com. But where I really want everybody to go is getmtm.com. I want you to go get a copy of the book yourself. If you'll go get a copy of the book, the website sends you to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever books are bought. And then you come back and you show us that you bought it. And Kevin and I want to give you a month of mentorship. A lot of people say, well, I don't have a mentor, or how do I get a mentor? So we put together a little month of mentorship where we mentor you through some of the key lessons that we've learned in life. And then we hope that after 30 days, you've developed a habit of mentorship, and you're going to want to go out and just have mentors for the rest of your life. And you're going to want to be mentors. So GetMTM is where it's at.
And like we do with every episode, we'll have detailed links in the show notes, places where you can connect with Mark and pick up your very own copy of the book. It's time to bring this episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show to a close. Many thanks for being a part of my conversation with Mark Timm. Once again, our book today was Mentor to Millions, Secrets of Success in Business, Relationships, and Beyond. For more on Mark and the book, 2 places to visit. First, head on over to marktimm.com, and that's TIMM. And the place that Mark really wants you to go, where you're going to be able to get that month of mentorship if you pick up a book, head on over to getmtm.com. And Mark, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's been a joy. It's been an honor to have you on the show.
Thanks, Shaun. Appreciate you.